Have you thought about food as a story? Now, we can tell stories in lots of different ways, but food is a powerful tool for communication and stories. So to share more about food stories and the power how food can help us to share our story, create our story maybe through a nice recipe that's built on our kind of home environment, current or even our past history. But I'm always fascinated about food stories. So I have got Bake Off star Karen Wright here, my local legend, with me because I am based in Yorkshire in the UK, in England, as you know. And what I really love about food, no matter where I am in the world, is the story behind it. So even down to my local shop, do you know that he was baking bread back home in Iran and then now has come to the country
exactly.
And now he makes that bread in our community, and that link is just incredible. Whereas you got like Doreen down the road who bakes the bread of her ancestors who used to live in that house. And it's all those food stories that can connect us and inform us. And there's some really interesting ones, right? I have to share this with you before I ask you as a pro. But when I lived in Italy, in Naples, right, I never realised a lot of the succulent southern Italian desserts they said were created, like cannelloni siciliana, were created by nuns, it's believed.
Wow.
In convents.
Convents.
Never been in. I have been in one, but not as an official person. But they did it to show their sexuality and to be sensuous and to be a bit naughty, and that's why they started to make these decadent, sexy, sensual,
like phallic
oozing, phallic desserts. And I love that's always stuck with me.
You remember that?
Yeah, and you can't help but remember a story, because stories connect us to humans, to history. To people. And Karen, what's your food story?
Well, the main, I want to just reiterate sort of what you're saying there, Sophie, because if I ever post anything, say on Facebook, I might put, I think I did pies the other day, I think I did something, and I might say, is a pie if it's only got a top? And then it brings out so many people, my friends, people who I know, who say then they're going down memory lane. When I were a kid, who can remember at school? And the nostalgia that one simple question about a dish, say, brings forth everybody's memories. And you're right, we all can remember way back what our grandmothers maybe, what the smells even about what they were cooking, and food that perhaps we don't have anymore, because I might say around here, do you know what scufflers are, Sophie?
No.
Scufflers. You see, if I said scufflers to people that lived in Featherstone and Castleford, they would all know exactly what I meant, because we loved the scufflers. It was a triangle again, but it was a bread cake, and there we are, bread cake, bread roll. There's so much fun to be had with food. The stories around where food originates from, historically, I'd love to be a food historian. I'm not, but there's so much, and if you've ever watched those programmes like back in the Victorian House, and they've obviously researched the history of the food that we had and how it's developed over the years to be what we've got now. Absolutely fascinating stories, loads. We've all got them. Every one of you out there has got their own story. Tell us.
Yeah, do share with us. What's your food story? What are your best memories through food? Like, I always remember my sister's just come back after 2 years from New York for a visit, and her first thing is we need chips, mushy peas and scraps from the local chippy, and curry sauce, obviously.
So she was coming home to her food
and
story.
Scraps were
bits.
Exactly.
Do you call them scraps? Do you call them bits? It depends where you come from.
Or do you call it? Do you have it? Is it a a chip butty or a bap or a bread cake?
Honestly,
what is it to you?
It's a lot of fun, but it's something we can all engage with, of course. Thinking about the stories, what it means to us, and everything is fantastic.
I love this. And do you have any food stories you can think of from your own?
From my own background,
history?
well, I can remember, my dad used to make corned beef hash, right? Corned beef hash. But then it moved on to Shropshire dollies. Now, I've not come across anybody else, so if there's anybody watching out there has heard the term Shropshire dollies before, tell me about it. Because to me, it was normal. My dad says, I'm going to make Shropshire dollies with that corned beef today, Karen. And I said, what do you mean, Dad? He said, we'll not have it as an hash. We'll layer it in I think he layered the corned beef and the potatoes and that. But he called it Shropshire dollies. And he's passed away now. I can't ask him why. I never thought at the time. I just accepted it. So old stuff like that, you know, memories of my grandmother in Featherstone had a black leaded range, you know, and she'd got the kettle hanging over the fire and bread, because she'd got 11, well, they were grown up by then, but she was used to it, making bread every day. And that's such a, I love making bread, Sophie. Do you ever make it?
Occasionally, I'll make a banana bread or a gluten-free one.
It's such a, it's the staff of life, isn't it? With you know, give us our daily bread, all the things we've heard, and you don't realise you've heard those phrases. But bread, it sustains us, and it's a very earthy thing to make yourself. You do that, knead it and bash it about and watch it rise and then bake it, and you'll have the most amazing experience. Honestly, do it.
And actually that's really funny, because I do a lot of mindfulness and yoga, and actually the process of cooking, so even I'm not the best cook, but even if I'm angry, I was like mashing a smoothie, and do you know, like
it's therapy.
It's therapy.
It can be therapy.
And it's a mindful like kneading, and this is why I think we say about slow food. It's just that putting that love in.
It's a love,
focus.
it's a smells, and it makes, it's like I made my Christmas cakes yesterday. And that story, there's a story, I never thought it was, but it is a story. That takes me right back year on year on year. I don't think I've ever missed making my own Christmas cake. And even when I wasn't baking much, I did do the Christmas cake. And that smell, the whole thing about making the wish, so it brings the family together. That's a tradition. So it's a traditional story that we do that when we make our Christmas cake or Christmas pudding. And then of course when it's baking, it takes hours. And it's lovely. And then you might perhaps treat yourself to a little glass of sherry, because that's what your mum always did when she was making that Christmas cake. So you've got that cosy, nostalgic feeling, you know, you've got that old sort of roaring fire idea going, and it's just a wonderful feeling. It feels brilliant because you can smell something baking. So there.
I love that. What nostalgia. And I love nostalgia. Like when you really think back, we can connect loads of our past with our present, and actually the more that I've opened my eyes to history, I'd be like, I'm not interested in history, the more incredible
history
it
is. Like, it doesn't have to be crusty old things that you find in museums, as interesting as that can be, but you know, normal history about our homes, our life, our furniture, look at a chair, what's that, how did that develop, you know, but food in particular, because the world is big, and all nations, all countries, there's stories abound, like you said about your Malaysian food. You know, there'll be stories why they did it that way. What was the reason? There'll be a reason why recipes have developed the way they have. Sometimes it's because, I know when I lived in Greece, we used to see the housewives taking trays of uncut stuffed peppers along the street, and they were taking them to the bakers. They baked their peppers and stuffed tomatoes in the residual heat of the baker's oven. Did the same in France with potatoes boulangère, because people didn't necessarily have ovens, and they don't in India. I don't think a lot of people don't have ovens, so baking's not a thing. So people would use the communal bakers to do that. So I used to see that, and of course it's a story. I took it for granted, but that was unique to then and there, you know. And that must be, wouldn't it be fascinating to find out from all the countries of the world, every corner of the world, these little snippets of stories and information.
And that's what's interesting as well, because I was even looking, you say I'm not interested in architecture, but then when I actually heard at a women's event recently on Westgate, it was all about, like, it was all stories again, even down to my new furniture.
The walks in Wakefield I've seen, and you look up, always look up in the street, because that's where the interesting things are to be seen, the buildings that have been there years, and you walk around like that.
Yeah, or looking at his phones.
And look up, and there's history just in front of you.
Right. Well, we'll be doing more on food stories. I'm getting Karen on board more to do maybe even some cooking together.
That would be amazing.
Let's do it. We'll have our own food stories playlist, and we want to hear from you as well. We'll have a weekly feature, I think, on food stories. So we'd love to hear yours. So do comment below or tag us on social media. I'm at The Sparkle Coach, at Mama May Blog, all over at Sparkle Up North. And you are?
I'm Karen Wright Bake. So it's Karen, Wright with a W, W-R-I-G-H-T, and then Bake, B-A-K-E, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as well, I think.
So send you all so much peace. Can you do me love? Love and shimmies.
Oh, shimmies.
Shimmies. Oh, you can even shimmy and chefing. Love it.
Bye.